Welcome to the Luxury Kung Fu channel. Today's topic, history's top 10 richest people in the world. In today's society, Jeff Bezos is viewed as probably one of the richest persons to ever walk the earth. However, there are many billionaires and even trillionaires that have come before him. It's kind of hard to compare the wealth of someone that was born before the 1400s against someone who owned a kingdom. So we went into the lab and did some research to compile a list of some pretty impressive people for you to check out. So here we go. History's top 10 richest people. Number 10, William the Conqueror, $236 billion. With a nickname like Conqueror, there's good odds that you're probably making a lot of money. William the Conqueror was born in 1028 and went on to become the first Norman king of England. His estimated fortune reached the height at around $230 billion. His $230 billion is about half of Jeff Bezos' fortune. So let's take a look at how the Conqueror made his bread. The key to this is his nickname. William conquered England in 1066, a conquest that saw the loss of over 100,000 people. When he was crowned, several things shifted. He banned slavery and made everyone speak Fralish because he didn't speak English. During his reign, he had over 500 castles. This probably was one of the largest landowners in England and in Wales. He liked to eat well and dress well. And when he passed away in 1087, his clothes and jewelry were stripped immediately from his body, leaving him naked in the streets. Number 9, Osman Ali Khan, $236 billion. One of the most recent billionaires on our list. Osman Ali Khan was featured on the cover of Time magazine in 1937 as the world's richest man, the last ruler in the princely state of Hyderabad in India. His wealth was well known. But how wealthy was he exactly? It's estimated that his wealth hovered over $236 billion. But the Guinness Book of World Records, they got a different number, close to $750 billion. We'll go with the expert on this one, stick to 236. With that being said, Osman Ali Khan lived a life most of us dreamed of. The Jacob diamond, which is the 5th biggest polished diamond in the world, was used as just a paperweight in his office. But that's just a small portion of the collection of his jewels, which include the famous jewels of Nissan's. This collection that includes 173 jewels, including 2,000 carats worth of emeralds, dozens of pearls, studded necklaces, buckles, emeralds, you name it. Estimated to be worth over $2 billion, was passed down from ruler to ruler. And yet, this is still just a fraction of his wealth. I'll just mention the 50 Rolls Royces and the 300 servants to give you an idea. But Osman didn't always reflect his financial status. He was known to wear the same hat his entire life. He ate his food on a tin plate and was also known to bum for cigarettes. The man was known to knit his own socks. Over the course of his rule, he introduced electricity, airplanes, and railways to the district. He was also known to donate much of his wealth to institutional educational systems, as well as religious institutions. Number 8, Nikolai Romanov, $300 billion. We all know that Russia has had its fair share of wealthy families, and the Romanovs are probably one of the most famous. Unfortunately for them, their wealth was the reason they were massacred. Nikolai Romanov, the last Tsar of Russia, was estimated to have over $300 billion. Many historians view him as a weak and incompetent czar. And unfortunately, historians aren't the only one that believe that. Romanov was even quoted saying, "I am not prepared to be a czar. I never wanted to be one. I know nothing of the business of ruling." However, he did take advantage of his station. He had an annual salary of 200,000 rubles, with an expense account of 20,000 rubles for miscellaneous. But he often overshot that by 150,000 rubles on various things. To put this in perspective, factory workers only made 500,000 rubles a year. High-ranking generals only made 5,000 rubles. His spending budget was 40 times that of an average worker. So what was he spending all his cash on? Well, things like new uniforms, 20 G's. And he had to take care of wifey. She was known to spend $40,000 on various things at the drop of a hat. His events and coronations were the most expensive on record. 24 tons of silver were bought just for this event. A choir of 1,200 people were assembled to sing to this guy. Nikolai loved to party and was also very generous. On the 300th anniversary of the dynasty, he pardoned all civil debts and had over 1.5 million bronze, silver, and gold metal pieces made for this event. In addition, he mass-produced postal stamps and had handkerchiefs and mugs made to celebrate the event. Basically, it was a hell of a party and everybody left with bomb gift bags. He was also known for eating extravagant meals. I mean, the guy liked to eat, along with taking lavish trips. His mansion was staffed by 55 people and offered 3 levels of meals. The most basic still included a full course breakfast, 5-course lunch, and a full course dinner. The food was so upscale that the leftovers were served as delicacies to the local taverns. Nikolai was a fan of hunting and took many trips with a crew of 50 people or more. These were extravagant outings that often included painters that captured the scenes of the hunting. The annual hunting budget was the equivalent to the yearly salary of 300 school teachers. If that's not a lot of money, I don't know what is. Number 7, Andrew Carnegie, $309 billion. Among wealthy American families, Andrew Carnegie is probably at the top of the list. A steel magnate that went from changing spools in a factory to $309 billion in net worth. He had humble beginnings as a telegraph messenger. With hard work and success, and most importantly, attention to detail, he rose to become the superintendent of the Western Division of Pennsylvania Railroad. By the time he was 24, his superiors taught him the business side of things, which led him to investing a lot of money in the railroad business, which was booming at that time. This was right after the Civil War. After the Civil War, he began to invest in ironworks companies, namely Keystone Bridge Works and the Union Iron Works. He also launched the Carnegie Steel Company, which he sold to J.P. Morgan for the sum of $13 billion. His wealth was immense and well known by everybody, and he became a pioneer with it, authoring The Gospel of Wealth, which discusses the wealthy's responsibility. Here's a famous quote from the book: "The man who dies rich dies disgraced," and he practiced what he preached. He donated the equivalent of $4.8 billion to charities. And before he died, he made sure he gave most of it away, left a little for his family, and also left sizable amounts to his housekeepers. Number 6, Jacob Fugger, $400 billion. Now this Fugger was rich, no pun intended. Okay, maybe just a little bit. With a last name like Fugger, you gotta have a nickname. And it was Jacob the Rich. And for good reason. He had $400 billion in the bag. Back in the 1400s, Jacob's family made their money through textiles. When Jacob came of age, he started mining for silver, quicksilver, copper, and cinnabar. Jacob had a knack for investing his wealth across many different things. A lot of these industries worked out pretty well for him. By the time he had really made it, he was loaning money out to the Vatican. That's big. His bread helped build many buildings in the Vatican, including the Sistine Chapel. So of course this man liked very nice things. I mean, he is Jacob the Rich, and his wife often benefited as well. Jacob the Rich was noted for getting his bae 40,000 guilders of jewelry. Small thing for a rich boy. His home, 4 stories tall, which was deemed a Renaissance building at the time. There were waterfalls and fireplaces in every room. He also funded a housing project called Fougueray. There are 52 homes on the property that house people that are going through some type of struggle in life. There are just simply 2 requirements to live here. The rent was 1 symbolic guilda, and the residents had to pray for the Fugger family 3 times per day. So the Fougueray is still standing to this day, and the residents still only have to pay 1 guilder. That's the equivalent to 88 cents. No one knows if they still have to pray 3 times a day, but I would. Number 5, John D. Rockefeller, $400 billion. Jeff Bezos is on the rise, but he's still got a long way to go to be John D. Rockefeller. Rockefeller is a well-documented oil tycoon that everybody knows. He's sort of a household name. He amassed $400 billion by founding the Standard Oil Company. This happened in 1870, which skyrocketed in value shortly after. At one point, Standard Oil controlled 90% of the oil in America. His personal wealth became so enormous, he became 2% of the national economy. He pursued a comfortable life owning real estate across the land. Most notably, he owned Kaikwit, a 40-room home with views of New York City. This home took 6 years to complete, featuring collections of Chinese ceramics and 20th century art. But the Kui home is just the beginning. The home was set on an estate that would come to be known as the Poke and Teco estate. The estate ranges over 3,500 acres. It includes 75 homes, 70 roads, a 9-hole reversible golf course, outdoor swimming pools, several tennis courts, a full-size bowling alley, billiard rooms, and its own farm and gardens. Rockefeller wasn't well liked by the public, but in his later years, he stepped his game up big time. He donated 10% of his income to charity yearly. Number 4, Akbar I. Akbar I owned an incredible empire in the 1500s and had quite an impressive fortune in the amount of $500 billion, although some estimate him being worth way more. He is the direct descendant of Genghis Khan. He has ruling and conquering in his blood. It's in his DNA. From day one, he set out to conquer as much territory as possible, tripling his lands by the end of his rule. This was known as the Mughal Empire. His reign stretched across India all the way into northern Afghanistan. He was known for his religious tolerance, which was most unheard of at the time. Although he was Muslim, most of his close advisors were Hindu. In fact, he took an active role in uniting the two. He allowed individuals the freedom to choose their religion as well. Little is known about how his wealth was spent, but his empire controlled 25% of the world's GDP. Number 3, Augustus Caesar. Julius Caesar may be well known, but his heir, Augustus Caesar, was the man. He is the only confirmed trillionaire in the history, owning 1/5 of the wealth of the Roman Empire. This accounts for 30% of the world's GDP, at that time, of course. So buckle up. Most experts agree his fortune was modestly somewhere around $4.3 trillion. Much of his wealth came from his station as being emperor, but he got 75% of that cash from his father, Julius Caesar. Augustus doubled the size of the Roman Empire and left us this famous quote, "I found Rome of clay and left it to you of marble." Okay, this is getting good now. Number 2, Shizong of Song. The runner-up for the richest person in history is sort of mysterious. Emperor Shizong of Song reigned from 1067 to 1085. This was during a very prosperous era of China. At this time, they were the top maker of bronzeware, and farmers were granted the right to own their own properties. At this time, the production of rice skyrocketed and became a staple of the economy, effectively making them a commercial superpower. In addition to gunpowder, printing, and magnetic compasses, the Song dynasty was able to create the world's first paper money and also formed the world's first navy. The Navy allowed them to defend their trade routes, which protected their products. With all this innovation coming out of China, Emperor Shenzhen controlled 30% of the global GDP. And with a highly centralized economy, Shenzhen had immense control over the money. His wealth has been called immeasurable. Experts know it's trillions of dollars, but it's very hard to measure. Much of his wealth is due to the fact that he formed and increased taxes hundreds of years before European governments. But even with his wealth, he was known for being fairly giving. He's the forerunner of the modern welfare system. His policies actively improved those situations of the unemployed, the homeless, and the peasants. All right, luxury kung fu fans, we're finally at number 1. Just want to thank you for hanging in there. If you like what you've seen so far, please let us know and hit the subscribe button. Also hit the notification bell and we'll keep you updated on our latest videos. All right, this one means a lot to us. We didn't really know this, but the richest person in history is Mansa Musa. This is probably someone you've never heard of, but after this, you'll never forget him. This black man, African, from Mali, controlled a fortune so vast, so extravagant, so marvelous that modern historians cannot even fathom how much they truly had. He rode across Africa on zebras in style, uncomparable. carrying thousands of pounds of gold. And that was the equivalent of spare change to him. He became the ruler of the Mali Empire in the 1300s, when his predecessor went missing trying to find the end of the Atlantic Ocean in the 1300s. If only his predecessor had just took the land, we would have never heard of this guy. He would have had an incredible life living under Mansa Musa's rule. At this time, Europe was struggling immensely. The Great Famine, Civil War, and a little fun thing called Black Death brought all the kingdom of Europe to its knees. At this time, Mansa Musa was chilling. Mali was the biggest producer of gold and salt, which were two of the most important products at this time. During Mansa Musa's reign, he conquered 24 cities and the surrounding districts within the first few years of his rule. Yet, he remained distant from the world, even Egypt and Middle East. Very little was known about him until he decided to take his journey to Mecca as a Muslim. The pilgrimage was an important part of his religion. But when you're Mansa Musa and have all these riches at your disposal, you don't exactly have to rough it. His voyage to Mecca covered over 4,000 miles, and he didn't do it alone. He brought thousands of soldiers and slaves and heralds. Every single person wore Persian silk and carried gold staffs. The camels and horses carried hundreds of pounds of gold. There were at least 80 camels that carried about 50 to 300 pounds of gold each. And as he journeyed through Africa, he treated it like some type of Mardi Gras. It was a spectacle for all eyes to see. He spent frivolously in cities, often paying them in gold. When he approached Cairo, El Nasir, the Sultan, ordered him to visit his palace. Mansa Musa refused at first, but finally agreed to go upon illness and constant insistence. And there was a bit of tension because Mansa Musa did not want to kiss the feet of the Sultan, which was viewed as a gesture of respect at this time. After kissing his feet, Al Nasir granted him lodging for the night. Cairo is one place one person could soon forget, but when he left, it was covered in gold, and people were basking in the fortune they were given. But unfortunately, dumping all this gold on Cairo became a huge problem. These gold gifts depreciated the value of metal in the area, and it would take 12 years for the city of Medina, Mecca, and Cairo to recover. It is said on his long journey to Mecca that he funded a mosque being built every single Friday. Upon arriving to Mecca, he turned himself fully to his religion and studied for days at a time. And when he returned home, he got to work on building palaces, mosques, and universities. Notably, he created Sankor Madrasa, a leading center at university that housed 1 million manuscripts, rivaling that of the Library of Alexandria. Unfortunately, after Mansa Musa's death, the Mali Empire soon fell. Constant civil war began to weaken the country, and its ability to trade became diminished. By the 1600s, Mali was being invaded by European countries, and colonization was on the rise in Africa. So did you notice something about this list that was consistent? Well, the top 2 controlled natural resources. The top 5 included some conquerors. And to make this list, you basically had to be first to strike, especially in the new world of America. Do you think Jeff Bezos will pass them based on the way society is going today? Let us know in the comments section. If you enjoyed this video and found it educational, leave us a like, hit the subscribe, and please, the notification bell will keep you updated on all the latest videos. And we'd love for you to be first in line. That's it from us here at the Luxury Kung Fu channel, the pursuit of perfection in everything you do.